Safety Committee meeting to order. Thank you all for being here today. We'll start right out with a presentation from Mark Fankhauser, our battalion chief.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say at this point. Just want to give a quick intro for Battalion Chief EMS Mark Fankhauser. We've been working on the transition from medical first responder to EMT for about 2 years now. We've finally crossed that threshold. For those of you that don't know, we run about 25,000 alarms in the city each year. About 17,000 are medical related, or 68%. We do a very good job of taking care of our citizens from the time we arrive until the time ALS or advanced life support arrives in transports to the hospital. Going to EMT has afforded us very specific skill sets, which Chief Fankhauser is going to get into, that allows us to do more care on scene before that ambulance arrives. So Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, Mark Fankhauser, Battalion Chief EMS. The joy that I have today is to present to you the tools that we are going to use pre-hospital to help our citizens and our guests and our visitors here to the great city of Grand Rapids. It has been known that we've always operated as an MFR agency, or a medical first response agency, where it was, why is the big red shiny fire truck here? I called for an ambulance. Well, we are part of a system, and that system is from the inception or the time of the alarm or the incident all the way through until the patient is at the ED or the emergency department. And we play a vital part in that component. We are oftentimes, greater than 90% of the time, the first to arrive on the incident scene. We assess, we provide the appropriate care, we identify additional items that are necessary, and we inform our ALS partners. And when I say ALS partners, the two agencies that we primarily work with, that's American Medical Response and Life EMS. We work together in this system to provide the appropriate patient care. When we transitioned from the MFR agency to that of an EMT, or the emergency medical technician, pre-hospital non-transport agency, we're not going to have ambulances right now in the city of Grand Rapids saying Grand Rapids Fire Department. We are a non-transport agency, but we hold the licensure of an EMT agency. And what that affords us the opportunity to do is to provide some additional life-saving measures. And in front of me, I have a couple of items that I'm going to show you briefly. Just going to bring them up, hold them up. First thing is airways. So your airway oftentimes becomes one of the most compromised conditions in a medical emergency. So we now have at our disposal what we call an iGel. That is an advanced airway that we can place blindly. We don't have to have a laryngoscope to look in and see the vocal cords. We place this blindly into the patient's mouth, and it seats in the correct location and provides a protected airway to our patients. It's a great tool. The next thing, how many people, don't raise your hand if you have a CPAP at home or your significant other has said, stop snoring. All right? When I say that, we sort of joke about that. However, there are medical conditions that require supportive care through the use of a CPAP device. Now, this would be affixed to the patient's head, much like if you've ever flown recently, how the stewardess or the flight attendant will say, please place over your face. Same thing, it goes on. Air is provided at a pressure to help inflate the lungs. Not to get in real technical terms, but it helps keep the lungs inflated. And when that happens, then we get better gas exchange through the lung field, and it helps the patient improve. And conditions that we would see that in is congestive heart failure, or people experiencing acute asthmatic attacks. So we can use this. With that also, we have another little nifty box that we have to carry. And in this box, I like to call this our med pack. And in our med pack, we have a variety of medications. So first and foremost, we can carry epinephrine now and administer epinephrine in case someone has an allergic reaction. So if someone has an allergy to bees and they don't have their EpiPen that you've seen where they talk about driving it in their leg, we carry now the life-saving medicines with us, and we are licensed and capable of administering this to those patients. Additional things we also talk about carrying is albuterol. Goes in for the CPAP or the nebulized treatment for those people who have seen those people holding those plastic things that look like smoke's coming out of the end of it. That is basically albuterol being aerosolized and then drawn into the lungs to provide that medication that's necessary to open up those lung fields. So there's an important medication. It has to be done at an EMT level or higher. The next thing, how many people have upset stomachs? You ever had that morning, get up in the morning, it's like, ooh, I'm really not feeling too good, probably shouldn't go to work, you got a little nauseated. We now carry medicine to assist our citizens when they're having that potential nausea. And we can administer that medication to help quell that down, so when they get to the hospital, they're in a better state or a better condition to maybe answer questions more readily available to the ER doctors. And the last things we carry as we get older is we carry aspirin in conjunction with nitroglycerin. Now, in our state and in our county, EMT agencies are not allowed to administer the Narcan. You may ask, well, Mark, why is it in that packet? Is because we are regulated by the state and by the Medical Control Authority that we have to purchase all of our medications. And when I say purchase, the patients, the ALS agencies purchase it with the hospitals. We have an exchange program. So these medications cost the city, cost the Grand Rapids Fire Department no money right now, because we exchange. They provide it to us. We do a one-for-one exchange. We can give the aspirin, which is critically important when we're dealing with someone with a cardiac event, that we have to provide them that aspirin. We provide the aspirin up to 324 milligrams. So if you've taken one baby aspirin at home, great, we're going to give you 3 more. If you haven't taken any, we're going to give you all 4 to give you a total dose of 324 milligrams. We exchange this with the hospital or with the ambulance. Once the ambulance goes into the hospital, they do a complete med bag exchange, and the pharmacy is required by law then to ensure that all the medications are within expiration date and the correct medication. And the last thing is our diabetics. Whether you've been told you have pre-diabetes or you have diabetes, we also now can do a blood glucose check, by simply poking your finger, getting a little drop of blood, and we can provide that oral glucose to that member in that appropriate time. So with that being said, it is a great privilege and honor that we are now an EMT agency, because we are providing a great level of care to our citizens, to our visitors, and to our guests. Open for questions if you have any.
I just want to say I'm really excited about this and glad. I think Chief Brown and I talked about the ability to be able to service more of our community members, and I know there was a lag time between that because you weren't really fully certified for all of that, so I'm really grateful to have that on board, and I think it'll help a lot more of our citizens. I'm definitely not going to go back on you about that CPAP, because me and her are friends. Anybody else, colleagues? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add my thanks as well. Some of these equipment pieces we're also trained with to a limited extent in the military reserves, and I know how difficult they can be to administer. And we get training, but then it's one thing to learn the book knowledge, and then you get presented with a situation where you have to use it to save someone's life, and it's the knowledge can go out the door super easy. So just the fact that your whole crew is equipped to provide this treatment to the public, I think is a huge testament. And I hope people in the public realize how big of a deal that really is in providing them with the best care. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I happen to live on a street that is entertained regularly by fire trucks going by me, mostly because I live around 4 or 5 elderly complexes. So they're all heart attack calls, fall calls. And I just scratch my head. I think, boy, how much does that cost to put that truck out there? So I guess I'm just dropping a bomb here, but I think it's ridiculous that we don't have ambulances in our fire department. I think it's time to maybe look at that, because many, many reasons to consider that. So there's my 2 cents, and thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll add 2 with you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Next on our list, we have a discussion with micromobility, with Mobile GR Director, Police Chief, and our Fire Chief.
Chair Knight, thank you. I'm just going to kick it off here before turning it over to our department and chiefs, department director and chiefs, just to continue a little bit of the theme that we just had in our fiscal year 24 annual report out, but for the benefit of those that have joined. Our overall approach to our mobility system is obviously safety. We lead with safety. That is one of our, that is our foundational obligation and approach. And mobility, when we talk about having cars and trucks and buses in pretty close proximity to people who are going at a walking and a biking speed, that's a tough road to hoe. And Michiganders, if you haven't been driving on our streets, really like to go fast. So keeping people at the speed we've posted is also a challenge. So we really lean in on a bunch of tools, but around behavior change. So that's more the engineering, the traffic circles, the bike lanes, the separation, and education, because we really need people to change their behavior. And some of the kind of enforcement tools are less durable than changing our system and having that system kind of separate users and force the speeds to slow down and the people to be smarter. But there is a big dose of personal responsibility as well. So as we transition over to looking at micromobility as one of those particular technologies we are using, and it fits really well into the overall set of choices, we need those users to be smart about when they're using micromobility. So just as a little PSA, wear a helmet. Don't sign up and use this if you are not in your best state of mind and making all your fastest decisions, because there is a big dose of what we all rely on is know what your own limits are and don't use the technology if you can't do it well. So turning it over to Jessica.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Smith, and I'm the Mobile GR Director. I'm just going to bring up a little bit of a presentation because I've got some cool pictures to show you all. So first of all, what's micromobility? If you don't know, that is something that moves one person at a time. It's not just a scooter, it's not just a bike. This is also things like skateboards and one wheels, if you've seen those. Even a wheelchair is considered a micromobility device. It's something to help you get around. So that can be something that's privately owned, or like the city's decided, we have a shared fleet of those green bikes and scooters that you see out in our streets right now. So right now, our micromobility program is you're looking at about 400,000 rides a year. That's what we're seeing. We actually started micromobility here in the city in 2020. We had a couple of different vendors that we worked with, and then by July 2022, just about 2 years ago, we settled in with the bikes and scooters you see today with a vendor called Lime. So those are those green bikes and scooters that you see parked out in the city and folks using. We have about 1,600 bikes and scooters in that fleet today. It's 50% scooters and 50% bikes. There's about 300 parking zones, which are those painted zones on sidewalks, and there's a sign, I'll show you a picture a little bit later, and they're just designated parking zones, and you're required to park in those zones, or the bike will, or the scooter will make a little beepy noise until you can't park there. So try to corral all of those bikes into one spot. The other thing that the bike program, the shared scooter bike program, is doing here at the city is we just completed a 90-day pilot working with McGill University on a research project around transportation equity, where we reduced fees for eligible applicants 100%. So in other words, they got up to, I believe, 5 rides a day, up to 30 minutes each, to help that first last mile transportation challenge that all cities and transportation systems see. We had over 22,000 trips and over 900 eligible riders in this program for 90 days. And so I want you all to know that that was in the top 10 global cities in success for the program. And we were looking at other cities like London who were doing the same program. So it was really great participation. I want to turn this over to Chief Brown and let him chat a little bit about some of the safety challenges that he is noticing on our streets.
Thanks, Jess. So the first thing I want to do is offer a little perspective. The previous slide showed 400,000 annual rides. That's a lot. That's a lot of rides. However, we are experiencing some accidents with the scooters and micromobility devices. So far this year, fire has responded to 72 crashes. 55 were single-person crashes where the individual ran into a curb or building or other infrastructure, and then 14 were scooter versus vehicles, 3 were bicycle or moped versus vehicles, and 1 actually was scooter versus scooter. Not sure what they were doing there, but didn't work out so good. What we are seeing, though, when we show up, in those 55 where a scooter strikes a curb or a pole or a building, we are seeing pretty serious head injuries and fractures. Again, back to Deputy City Manager Barron's point, you need to wear a helmet. You need to use safety equipment, and you also need to follow the traffic laws. Drivers are looking for these scooters in a lane of traffic, not zipping by them on a sidewalk, not stopping at stop signs as people are turning. So we are seeing serious injuries when they happen, but again, the perspective is we have car accidents every day. We have pedestrian and bicycle accidents several times per week, okay? This program started in 2022. So I just want to frame that we've identified we are seeing some issues. We give the best care possible when the big red truck shows up, but there are many things that can and probably should be done at the personal level and at various levels to make this a little bit safer. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jess.
So I'd like to ask the police chief to come up and just chat about what we're doing in response, because we're all working together on this one.
We are, yeah, and I think it's important that what Chief Brown pointed out is a fairly new program that we have, and we all recognize that there is room for improvement. So some of the improvements that we're talking about, as Deputy Chief Barron, Deputy City Manager Barron said, to paraphrase, prevention, education, the police department sees as more important than taking enforcement action. We don't want to have our officers spending all day pulling over scooters. So the fencing is important. Again, Mobile GR has been great working with us with geofencing as well, which is, electronically prohibiting scooters from operating in certain areas. That was big when we had a big political rally downtown with tens of thousands of individuals, and we saw a problem. They immediately geofenced the area that we requested. So working together, it's definitely a work in progress, but the signs are going up, as well infrastructure for specifically bike lanes and or scooter lanes, which definitely makes the operation of a bike or scooter safer. So we're getting better, and I think we all agree that we intend to continue to get better.
Thank you. I just think it was really important for you all to hear from the folks that are seeing things on the ground. I try to get out there as much as I can. I live downtown in Hartside, and I see this zipping by my office every day too, but they see everything, and they see folks on their worst days. So it's really great for us to work together and share that data. So like the chief was mentioning, that we've got this infrastructure going in today. We have 113 miles of bike infrastructure that's been either improved or added. That's what we have total today. We've had about 25 miles of new or upgraded since 2020, and these are like the really important pieces of your infrastructure that can help provide those safer areas for bikes and scooters. We also have an Instagram. That's where we do a lot of our, we have all kinds of social media, but that's where we do a lot of our educational safety messaging. So definitely follow us if you already don't at On The Go GR. We have this on-street signage for parking and also those pedestrian zones. You'll start seeing these go up. They say walk your wheels on the sidewalk. It's referencing that micromobility section in your code where you all, work together, the commission work together on what the kind of rules and regulations are locally. So when you go to ride our shared fleet, you're going to open up that app, and you're going to see different messaging on that app as well to help you understand local rules and regulations. So based on that data from different departments, helping inform through those incident reports, maybe things that we want to remind our riders of when they open up that app. So you have kind of three different sorts of messaging in the app. One is how to ride. Another is what are those local rules and regulations, and safety recommendations. Like, we really hope that you guys will wear a helmet when you start riding on these bikes and scooters. It also tells you here how to keep yourself safe. So these are actual screenshots that you would see if you opened up that app at right of way. These first two you'll see always when you first use the app. app. And you can see it talks about being older than 18 years old. That is part of the rules and regulations on this specific vendor. And then also 1 rider per vehicle. Don't drink alcohol and ride. And then what we did in response to seeing, some different information from fire and police is we actually put a little message checker, the one all the way to the red to the right that says that you're safe to drive. You actually look at that and it gives you a little thing that flashes and you have to kind of do an extra little reaction test there. I'm safe to drive. So that was an added thing that we did in the messaging app, just, based on some information seeing there. The police chief talked about managing the fleet with geofencing. That's those invisible fences that we can control access, speed, and the electric assist. So there's that electric assist on the scooters and bikes. We can when they go into these, it's not that it just stops working. It just stops the electric assist. So people can still kind of kick their stuff through there, but it's really hard, and those things are pretty heavy if you don't have that electric assist. And then we have those designated parking zones, and you can see in this picture, it's those little capital Ps that are in a circle. Okay, and that's pretty much it on how we're working and what we're doing together. And Kate's just going to wrap us up with that future of micromobility and what we're seeing and what's next.
Yeah, so as we continue to grow as a community, we do know that all of these transportation methods and tools are going to be necessary for people to be able to get around safely, to get around in a way that they can plan for the right amount of time to get where they're trying to go. So we have not only micromobility, which really, as Jessica mentioned at the beginning, solve that first mile, last mile, makes transit more practical in certain times of the year and for certain people to be able to get from home to that stop. So it might be too far to walk, but these kinds of tools will help people close that gap. And you can see that by the kind of private side purchasing here with e-bikes and scooters really taking off on the private side as well. So it's not just our fleet, which makes it accessible to folks that don't want to make that kind of long-term investment, but we're seeing more private purchases as well. So we will continue to report out through our various methods how we are doing it, but wanted to build some trust and understanding here amongst this group that we are responding as we see things happening and information is being shared across our public safety departments to help lead to that more robust and safe transit system. So thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, all of you. I guess I got a couple of things that I wrote down because I'm a biker as well, and I'm just wondering, we talk about helmets, but sometimes there's that equity piece that comes in there where people can't afford to get a helmet. And have we thought about ways that we can provide helmets? I don't know if it's a locker that's close by or something. I remember some years ago when there were a lot of bike accidents happening in our community, there was an organization that was actually giving out helmets to people so that they had that protection in this process. And then also thinking about the educational piece. I know you said that you were doing a lot of social media informationals, but thinking about the people that's not on the city site. Like I don't just wake up and look at the city site or their Instagram or their Facebook. I just don't, right? And so thinking about those populations of people who don't engage with that, how are we reaching out to them? How are we making sure that they have the information that they need to access? And then just last week, I was a part of a bike audit on Fuller Street, and I'm thinking about the signage that's being put out so people know that they're supposed to be in the street and not on the sidewalk. But literally during that bike audit, I had 2 people ride past me on scooters, right? And there's no signage on Fuller. And this was, doing a 2-mile stretch up and down that street area just to see what was there, as well as, marked bike lanes in certain areas of the city where people don't have that access. And then also thinking about, I know you said something about you were talking about the geofencing in certain areas, but I just had a thought about, when you're driving, and sometimes for people who drive a little bit faster, say on the highway, if you're on cruise or whatever, if you're using your Google Maps or something or Waze, it'll alert you to, police being present or whatever, if there's a way to do something like that to alert people that, you should not supposed to be on the sidewalk at this space, and this is, different areas where they can park it, because I see scooters and stuff all over the city, not in those specific areas that they're supposed to be. So I guess a bunch of thoughts and questions mixed, intermingled.
Sure. Start with the helmets. That is an ongoing challenge. How do you get folks helmets? How do you get people to wear them? What is the practicability of like carrying your helmet around? And a lot of folks that are using our shared mobility are visitors, right? So that's kind of an added amenity that is offered. So there's a lot of conversation in the industry about how to solve that problem, and no one has a great solution yet, but you did mention some of the things that happen, giving away bike helmets. There are some things out there like having them attached to the micromobility device. There's some solutions out there, but we haven't come up with the one that works here yet, but I appreciate you bringing that up because it is definitely a challenge. You spoke about geofencing. Was there a specific question in there? I just want to check.
No, just some intermingling about,
Thoughts, yeah.
because you said the geofencing in that they no longer have the electric accessibility, right? And so, but those are only specific spots, and most of those are downtown, or is that just all across the city?
So we have a map of the ones that are like that all the time, and they're kind of all over. But the other thing is we can turn those on and off, like like Chief Winstrom was talking about, for like a big event. Just like you would maybe close off a road for a festival or something. We can geofence areas as appropriate, and we work with special events and police and fire to figure out when that's appropriate.
Got it. Thank you.
And I believe there was one more you were chatting about Fuller. Were you on Fuller or Fulton?
Fuller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the signs are going up now. They're still in a work order, so thank you for noticing, but we're trying to get those out as quick as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, great. Anyone else?
Yes, I want to commend you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak. But grateful for the work that you all are doing in this endeavor. I know we're not trying to be punitive in nature as a result of looking at this capacity for transportation around the city. But I am curious to know, with all of the vehicles that are around, all the mobile capacities that you have, the scooters and the bikes, I do understand sometimes they do go into other areas, because I know I've seen them, especially right off of Wealthy near where I work, especially in my parking lot. And so, which is next to a school in that capacity. And I said, well, I know that's not supposed to be there right now. And I know we're not trying to fine anyone by any stretch of the imagination, and that they're away from that particular capacity. But have we really studied the aspect of what can we do to make sure that the placement is accurate, for one, and then secondly, what other cities have you studied in this capacity? Because I know Indianapolis has the same line availability as well. And so what has been done in that capacity that we've used as a template in that capacity?
Right, great. So with our staff, we have not committed staff time to looking at the specific question you asked about how to change behavior and keep folks to bring them in. So that's not something we've explored at this time. We do know where the bikes are because they all have a little GPS on them. So, and the vendor that we use, Lime, they are responsible for going out and rallying those up when they're where they're not supposed to be. So they work with us on that, and we chat with them as well. There's also a thing, and you all can do this, anytime you see one of those kind of stray Lime devices, you can open up that app and not be a particular user and report it to Lime, and they will come in and grab it for you, and that's a great way to do that. And our staff does that too anytime we notice. But so that's that vendor really helps us. Their staff helps us kind of manage the fleet, but I appreciate your thoughts on that. And then you asked a second question on if we look at other cities. Absolutely. Other cities have also, this was new for every city, and we were on the forefront of this use, and they struggle with all the same things that we're struggling with here, and we do pay attention to them and try and learn from what other cities are doing and what they're trying, and we go back and also pay it forward and share back with those cities about what we're doing and what we're trying. Your staff is very engaged with their their industries and making sure they're working with their peers around the U.S.
What is the cost associated with utilizing these bikes or these scooters?
The cost for a user or the?
Correct.
I believe it's $1 to unlock and 36 cents a minute to ride. I am speaking, I would have to look at it myself. And there are different cost structures, like you can pay like a subscription and get a reduced cost. The other cost I know is that we have a 30% rate reduction for Lime bikes and scooters. That the trip starts in an area of focus in the city to help address some more of the transportation equity barriers there. And also we have a 50% reduction at all times in any ride for eligible riders that receive some type of federal or state assistance. If they put their information in and they can verify that, they can receive a 50% cost reduction on their fees. Does that help?
It does.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate the city and your department taking a pretty active and aggressive role in this, because it seems like it's come up quite fast over the last couple of years. And I also appreciate the emphasis on personal responsibility, because some of these are not that complex. People can get on it and learn it fairly quickly, but do they know the right way and the rules? Observation tells me that a lot of people don't even know they're not supposed to be on the sidewalk, and that's where our interface gets pretty close at what seems like to me 15 or 20 miles an hour. So if we don't address it, it will be a continuing problem. One of our construction adage is, what happen will happen over time. So if we can avoid any serious injuries, that would certainly be great. I also appreciate some personal protection in some of these situations where, whether it's elbows or whatever, that we can circumvent the problem. And I do think that anything that you do in public service, advertising or announcements, will be helpful to the general public. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
May I?
Oh, yeah, please.
Well, I'll preface my remarks with, get off my lawn. So, I'm not a big fan of these things. But I just wonder how you measure the capacity of the city to manage these problems that are created by this thing, and when does it get to the point where it's just not worth it anymore?
Thank you for the question. So I think there are a couple things at play in terms of our long-term vision of our city. And when we created the master plan, we talked about a multimodal city. So if not for the scooters, ideally we'd like all of our residents to have some access to something other than a car, a bike, whatever, bike, skateboard, whatever it is that we're able to allow them to have alternative transportation. So I know while we're focused on a bike share and scooter share, I think long-term, it's what we'd like to see. If we look at some of the cities that are really advanced in micromobility, where almost 90% of their residents have some access to some type of micromobility, I think that's what we'd like. The challenge is it's primarily concentrated in, well, I won't say that. It's all over through the city, but primarily it's a large concentration in downtown. Of the ride, to be interesting to see geographically where most of them occur. And so we're still learning, and I think the industry has evolved. I know that, early on, I worked in a city that was an early adopter of it, and they had bike infrastructure and scooter infrastructure all over the place. And what they found was that was not beautifying the city. It just, you had a bunch of bike racks all over the place. So I think we're still learning, as Ms. Smith has said, and we're challenged by it. But the thing that I don't want our police officers spending their time on enforcing things that are not immediately endangering the public health and safety of the residents and are more nuisance kind of complaints, because a lot of other unintended things can happen for us. So I think the more we can use education and technology, I think the better we'll be.
All right, thank you. I mean, we know as our world continues to change, things are going to change and they evolve. Sometimes they evolve faster than we want them to. But I think if we're always more proactive than being reactive, we can change not only our communities, but save lives. So thank you very much for that presentation. I appreciate it and appreciate your desire to want to keep our community safe. All right. Next up, we have our presentation from Chief, you're on again, the Police Department on our monthly crime statistics.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. Before Chief Fankhauser walks out, one of, if not the most challenging aspects of my job, and certainly any police officer that's been working well, is responding to the scene of unexpected death and trying to find a way to comfort the loved ones left behind. Just want to say we had a murder on last Wednesday. Malik Moore was murdered on the northwest side of the city, and Malik's mom was on scene, as well as dozens of friends and loved ones. A lot of passion, and we ended up having to call ambulance for one of the family members, and Engine 3 arrived first, and they developed such a strong rapport with mom, who was obviously dealing with the worst tragedy that a mom can deal with, and they stayed, I would want to say, for about an hour, just holding her hand and bringing her comfort. And I can't say thank you enough to that. I told them thank you on scene, but I just want to say it again publicly. They did such a phenomenal job and showed such compassion that they made a terrible, horrific situation. They made sure that it didn't get worse for mom, and I could tell it meant so much to her. So thanks to Battalion Chief Fankhauser and, of course, to Chief Brown, too. So, all right, had to get that out. Let's, if I can figure out how to work the PowerPoint. Okay. All right. Okay, September 24th update, and mostly good news. And this is, you'll see auto thefts are down. And just so you can see, again, I've mentioned the last couple of public safety meetings, but you see the spike of the Kia and Hyundai thefts back, the big spike in summer 22. We saw, again, a spike in 23, not so high. We didn't see that spike in 24, and you'll see that reflected in the auto theft totals, which are less than they were actually pre-pandemic. So continue to head in the right direction on that, and that's a combination of, obviously, great work by the police department, but also education of the public and even support from the prosecutor's office. A lot of these individuals were children as young as 11, and alternative diversion programs, which Prosecutor Becker has created to make sure that these kids have the insight to understand that they are headed down a bad path, and then they have the support to take them on another path. And we've seen the recidivism rate of these kids just drop like a rock. So a lot of progress there. Robbery totals, a little bump from last year, but not statistically significant. And ag assault totals, same story, pretty much flat across the way. Homicide totals, as I just mentioned, we lost Malik Moore last week to murder. That was murder number 10. So as always, difficult for me to talk about the progress and the success that we're seeing in the drop in murders, because we are talking about 10 human beings, but better than that the graph is going this way than the other way. I want to thank the phenomenal work of the detectives. We've had 6 of 10 murders cleared so far this year, and that includes yesterday. Held a press conference with Prosecutor Becker to announce charges in the murder of Lakijah Williams, 15-year-old girl who was killed downtown. And some of the challenges that we see, why we're at 6 and not 10, is some of the challenges that we dealt with Lakijah. I made some big press statements asking for help. You know, we knew that there were a group of kids there, that we knew that there were a group of adults there, and just building on the trust that I've been working on for the past 2.5 years to get to the point where the default of everybody in the city of Grand Rapids is, I want to help the police solve this murder. And we got there with Lakaja, and there's more work to be done. Another obstacle that our detectives are seeing is something that I actually saw in my last jurisdiction, and that's with the increase of individuals carrying firearms, whether illegally possessed firearms or concealed carry firearms. What we've seen is a number of incidents where when it comes to the prosecutor or court looking at it, it's considered mutual combatants, where two individuals, both armed with firearms, engage in an altercation. One of them ends up dead, and because we don't have the entire story and both individuals were armed, we have a problem with self-defense. So those are the obstacles that we're working through. Even so, we're beating the national average. I think by next public safety meeting, I'm going to have better news on 2023's numbers, but the detectives are working tirelessly. You'll see at least 22 fatal overdoses from fentanyl this year. My vice team has been out just working so hard on this issue. They recently seized $1.2 million from a very active drug dealer, and that made a big impact on letting especially the big operators know that Grand Rapids is not a place to come set up shop here. 271 illegally possessed guns removed from the streets. That's just through August, so more than one every day. And if you consider that those are illegally possessed guns, most of the time on the body of a criminal, and so that's 271 opportunities for very difficult encounters that the Grand Rapids police officers are doing a great job safely removing those guns from the street. Again, getting the message out, this is not the place to carry an illegally possessed gun. So we're making progress, hope to keep making progress, have even better news next public safety meeting, and certainly as we increase our staffing, which the city manager alluded to earlier, I think we're going to keep seeing good news for the city of Grand Rapids. And happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Chief. I got two. I know we were doing the gun recovery buyback program, all of that kind of stuff, and that is a hot topic right now. I know there was another mass shooting in the country just the other day. Where are we in that space, and just that whole conversation around illegal guns entering into our community? Do we have any thoughts of ideas of where those channels are, stopping some of that?
Yeah, we're up for We're up for so much of that, whatever we can do. I just had the U.S. Attorney reach out for me this morning to congratulate the detectives who worked really hard on bringing Lakaja Williams' killer to justice. And he's been a great partner. The ATF has been a great partner. I mean, if we could take the illegally possessed guns off the street and make it just that much harder to get these guns, that's huge. You mentioned buybacks. We've had 2 gun buyback programs since I've been here. What we see in those is generally the guns that make it to the buyback program are not typically those that we would see used by the criminal element in the city. Having said that, we have had children that were shot and killed accidentally by, in one case, a grandfather that had a gun, just a gun that he had for years in a dresser drawer. Those are the kind of guns that we often see in buyback. So I'm not saying it's not valuable.
Right.
Certainly, if the opportunity was there and the funding was there, which I think the last time I think it might have come from the Safe Task Force, would be up for that. Enforcement is always an option. You see 271 guns taken off the street so far, but just getting the message out, especially to our young people, that guns are introducing a gun to a situation where everyone is drinking and people are arguing. Introducing a gun to a gathering of kids, or Millie Penn's incident on the south end of town with a football game, and suddenly there's a young person there with a gun. Whatever the conflict is, it's tough. I met with a group of kids last night that I won't tell you the organization I met with, but it's at-risk individual kids, high school age. And when I left, it was pointed out to me by the organizer, because I did it last year too. He said, you actually spoke to JoJo last year. JoJo was the individual that we charged yesterday with murdering Lakaija. And that says to me that the organizations that are doing this work out there, they're reaching the right kids. It's just for whatever reasons, obviously beyond the police department's control, getting the message across to our kids to just put the guns down. We'll hopefully continue to keep thinking of new intentional ways to do a better job of that and make some progress.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I also, and maybe the chief can elaborate, but I think in response, especially with youth, we did a lot of prevention effort this summer, working with GRPS, OPA, some of the community-based organizations. But I think this fall, GRPS has instituted in their schools screening. I know at least in some of the high schools, and I think that too is helpful because we've had a few incidents that have happened on some campuses or shortly thereafter school. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I don't have the details for which schools they are. I know I meet with Larry Johnson at least once a month, and they're being very intentional, especially looking at the last year where they had, I think, 4 illegally possessed guns coming to school. A young man that was shot accidentally, but was shot in the face. Fortunately, survived, although we'll have some scars for the rest of his life from it. So they're the same thing. I think GRPS is of the mindset as whatever they can do to make their schools a safe place, they're doing it too. So, but as much as I think pretty confident in my ability to do my job, I'm very open-minded and always looking for more ideas. And really, the kids I talked to yesterday, and a lot of the kids in the community, I mean, I think back a few years ago when I was a kid, and just a few, you know how it is. You're seeking approval and you're seeking love, sometimes from your family, sometimes from your coach, sometimes from a special teacher, or I was involved in musical theater, Commissioner Knight. I know you're aware of that, and that made a big difference for me. It was important. I didn't want to get in trouble because I didn't want to get kicked out of play, And talking to the kids that go down the wrong path, it's they're seeking approval from the wrong people, and getting the right people in their lives is something that I've seen a lot of adults in Grand Rapids step up and work towards that. So if we keep it up, I think we'll keep seeing our violent crime go down.
Yeah. I think we have some really amazing organizations in this community that are really trying to reach deep and provide supports to our young people. Again, with everything else, this world is changing, and it's unfortunate that our kids have access to some of the things that they just shouldn't. Every change is not good, right? But I thank you for the work that you are doing. Does anybody else have? Yes, sir.
Just real quick, thank you, Chief, for the report and the update. Just curious to know two questions. One, what efforts are being taken to educate the community, especially parents and guardians, grandparents, you name it, about gun safety? Since we've had this uptick, have we thought about passing out the gun locks, in some capacity? And then secondly, can you talk a little bit about the recruiting efforts? Because I know we've had a lot of retirements that continue to happen.
Yeah, our neighborhood organizations do. There's a few of them that are really focused on. I know West Grand, for example, has I think a pallet of gun locks that they're all about gun safety over there. We have free gun locks at the window at One Monroe Center at the police department. You can walk in and get them. We did a push last year with GRPS to message the parents and kids there about gun safety, especially after some of the incidents we have. We haven't done a push this year. I'm not sure if GRPS has or not. There's probably more opportunity to once again do that. Communicate that, and since you brought it up, I think that's an excellent idea, because last year we did so much of it reactively to, a 12-year-old got shot, and we got that message out. Grammar school kids are walking in the door of a school with a gun, and that gave me the opportunity to get the message out, sometimes with an arrest of the parent. So better to get that message out when we're not talking about a near tragedy or a tragedy. So it's something that I'll be considering the moment I walk away from here. And second question about recruiting, we're doing everything we can, trying very hard to make everyone know that the Grand Rapids Police Department is it. If you want to be the police in Michigan, really in the whole Midwest, or if, the whole country, if you want to be the real police, this is where to do it. We have the best training. We have the best supervisors. I wasn't talking about myself. We have a phenomenal group of supervisors. You guys have met them. We have a fantastic culture of excellence, of professionalism, of family, and getting that message out has been important. Our officers are really our best recruiters. One of the things is you may see a few extra cameras here. Getting the opportunity, I love transparency, and I love just saying this is what we're doing, this is what we're about, but it's not always easy to get that message out. So having a documentary film crew follow us, and when that comes out, hopefully in a couple months, and just say transparently, this is what the Grand Rapids Police Department's doing. Me being an outsider, I'm walking in and seeing the difference of coming from a police department with a lot of history and a lot of problems, but a lot of stuff to be proud of too, and then coming here and see this is a phenomenal gold standard police department. We don't get enough credit for it. So any way I can get that message out is going to improve our recruiting, and we're going to hit, as the city manager said, we'll be at that 300 mark in no time, certainly before next summer. And sky's the limit. 500, 600, how many ever cops you guys want?
All right. Oh, yes, sir.
Chief, great report. There's obviously a huge impact of parental responsibility that's been entered into the law now. I wonder if there's any plans to do some sort of an education program to parents that say, you know, if you think you're helping your kid by not letting us know he's got a gun, you're hurting yourself, because you will go to jail if that gun is used. Just something like that. I'm not prescribing anything particular, but it seems like that's a phenomenon that most people, the kid goes out and whacks somebody, and the next thing they're going to jail, and it's like, all they had to do is tell us the kid's got a gun to begin with. You know, these guns are killing me. They're driving me nuts. And the other thing is that with the public schools, they turned down a grant to get this, I think it's called gun spotter technology. It's some sort of like little, I don't know what it is, radar or something, but they can detect a gun on someone 40 yards away and coming towards a school. They turned it down apparently because there's some financial things, but that to me seems like some technology that they really should be looking at. And I don't know if there's a way that we can find.
We do have some of our private schools in town that do have that have that technology. I will say, I keep saying that GRPS is being very intentional to increase safety. We have now in every school, including GRPS across the county, we have direct link radio to our dispatch center or to Kent County Dispatch Center. So we have a much faster, real-time, God forbid there's ever an active shooter incident, but also an incident like this, an illegally possessed gun is spotted in the school, they can instantaneously be on the radio, not waiting for a 911 ring, on the radio with one of our dispatchers, so in real time we can get that information. So we are headed in the right direction, but I think technologically wise, there probably is some more positive moves to be made.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I don't think there's a child that wakes up and goes to the corner store and just picks up a gun. They're coming in through different streams, and then we have people, and a lot of times parents or siblings, who are out in the streets and for one reason or another can just get it from, different circles in our community. So it's a much bigger problem that's going on, not just here, but across the country. And we are just going to have to be proactive and come up with some more strategies to be able to identify where these channels are, just like we do with illegal drugs and everything else that enters into our community, and being able to identify that and start to put some things in place that will keep our kids safer. Yeah. All right, thank you, Chief, again, for all of your work. And I think our last presentation, we have the SAFE Task Force update. So, thank you, Mr. Kane and Commissioner Isasi.
Thank you. I'm going to just say a few words, and then I'll turn it over to Commissioner Isasi. I feel like I feel like Samuel L. Jackson following James Earl Jones after the police chief there. But I do want to say, though, on a serious note, though, that many of the programs that have just been discussed, the SAFE Task Force has been at the forefront of talking about these things and funding these things, whether it was a recreational program, whether it was a gun buyback, whether it was, recreational programs dealing with youth that are, on the streets doing doing some of these crime or being troubled. The SAFE Task Force has been at the forefront of funding and talking about these issues. So I'll turn it over to Commissioner Isasi and then introduce a few other people too.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. And yes, I was thinking the same thing too, Mr. Kane, just the number of things that were mentioned. I also want to recognize our colleague, Ms. Shannon Harris with Our Community's Children, who has been a faithful member of the SAFE Task Force for many years. So thank you for being here today. And Asante will introduce some of our task force winners. I became involved in this work in 2013 when the task force, 2014 when the task force was put together. At that time, I was working in the private sector, but as somebody, as like Commissioner Knight was talking about, had been impacted by violence that happened in my own community. Those that in my family who had perpetrated violence with a gun or had been victims of gun violence themselves. I also had the opportunity to work at Cascade Engineering for many years, who had been on the forefront of how businesses could be involved with reducing violence and being a force for good. And so when at the time Mayor Hartwell and Commissioner Lanier said, we want to put this task force together because guns are too prevalent in our community, it was something that I stepped up to. So I was initially a resident and a neighbor member for many years, and then became one of the co-chairs when I became a commissioner. But really the frame is pretty simple, is there are, as was mentioned, so many organizations in our community that are doing good work and oftentimes don't have the resources to maybe innovate something or to execute something. Most of the people that we work with have been doing things solely out of their own pocket, out of neighbors coming together to say we want to reduce violence in a particular block or on a corner. And so the SAFE Task Force provides some mini grants to be able to establish that work. And I'm really happy to say that many, much like, it's different, but much like our Neighborhood Match Grant Fund, have been able to make an initial investment, and so then they can show, here is a little bit of this idea coming to fruition, and can seek out funds from much larger funders. And one of them you have heard, this body has heard from in the past, has been Puertas Abiertas. And so, yes, we've done the buybacks. Yes, we've convened individual groups, and Mr. Kane will talk more about that. But I just want to remind you, our two focus areas are providing mini grants that we do in the fall. So today on our fiscal committee, we were allocated the $60,000 to do that across different organizations, $10,000 grants, as well as convene a group usually around March to say what are the topics and issues that are happening. And then lastly, also engage in an RFP process. So I think PR Big Shot, that's your nickname on the street, Mr. Ed Kettle. Where is that responsibility with the parents? So one of the RFPs that we've done in the past have been focused on parental involvement, communication. Also, a lot of the investments have been organizations that are working with the entire family, not just that young person, because we know, Commissioner, I was just thinking about things in my own family. It's like, it's a 12-year-old hanging out with a 16-year-old, 11-year-old hanging out with a 15-year-old. And there might be reasons why, just out of necessity, but then what do they get exposed to? So actually this discussion, it fits really well with the update today, and I know we have a time crunch. Lastly, I'm sorry, I'm missing out my other colleagues too. DC Trigg, thank you for being here. And much like was shared, I don't know if you were in musical theater, I think you were a star football player or something. But at one of the convenings very early on, he was able to share just some of his experiences and what led him to choices. And so that's really what we need, is people to share, what is my experience? I was just like you. I made some bad decisions in my life as well. And I could have went this way, but I did a couple things and I went this other way. And so the SAFE Task Force is that. Investment, a little bit of research and development, and community leaders like Mr. Kane, DC Trigg, Shannon Harris, and others that are in this audience today. So I know we don't always get to talk about it as much, but I really appreciate this ability to do an update, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. Kane.
Thank you, ma'am, and appreciate your leadership as a co-chair. So we have Commissioner Isasi and Kirby Killingham as our co-chairs. And you'll see there are a number of people that make up this task force. All come from different backgrounds, have different resources, but all are interested in reducing violence in our community. and I am the staff liaison, Asante Kane. So as Commissioner Isasi said, we have a few ways that we fund these grassroots programming, the pitch and highlight nights, where people get the opportunity, organizations get the opportunity to kind of pitch their ideas, quick 5 minutes. Also, as we've grown and matured in this work, we give opportunities for the groups of practice and to get feedback. And what we see is they might not win at the pitch night, but they're better prepared to pitch their ideas to other community organizations for funding. And then also we have an RFP process that is decided by the task force. After the conversations, after we learn a little bit about what the community is thinking about, what is needed, we put out RFPs. So we have had 2 years of RFPs that worked with parenting, and that came from the realization that, yes, you have young people and they go to get talked to, get ministered to, get more information about how to steer away from violence, but then they go home and they have these terrible situations. So that's where we decided to start funding some work through Family Outreach Center, through Realism is Loyalty, where the whole family unit can get some counseling and some support. These are some of our previous winners at the last pitch night. We Matter Now, they do it's actually 3 different organizations, and they provide conflict resolution, problem solving, and self-efficacy training for youth with a 1-day conference. And then with that, though, they do try to get the youth to kind of connect with them later on in the summer months. And we have focused mostly on summer months because we do know that more violence happens in the summer than in the winter months. And move on to the next one. We have tailor-made reentry. I'm going to skip this one because Ms. Taylor's in here and she could tell us a little bit about her work. And we also have Coach Mel from Hatchet Player Development. He's here and he can tell a little bit about his work. And then finally, we have Freedom Elevated Defense Solutions. And they do a gun safety training program for young people. And in the near future, they'll be partnering with GRPS. As I said, we do these RFPs. The last few ones have been related towards families and parenting. This previous one was through the Family Outreach Center. The Start Now program supports a supportive environment that allows parents of youth impacted by trauma a safe space to process their experience and develop tools to better understand and support their youth. And then you'll see a number of those other outcomes that they seek to gain. We also do what we call a safe gathering, where we invite people that have previously participated in these safe pitch nights and other persons in the organization just to kind of sit around a circle. I think we really intentionally try to sit around a circle so we can kind of look face to face and think about and talk about what's needed to make our community safer. So these are some of the topics that were discussed at our last gathering. Young people need jobs. They need help retaining jobs, financial literacy. How can we maybe hire school students to be leaders and mentoring young people? Maybe we see a little bit of that through the Grow 1000 program. The Safe Task Force through Our Community's Children has funded youth in that program before. Consistent and safe transportation for young people, a continuum of care for these young people. So they're just not being talked to once, but like how do we support them throughout their days and weeks and years? And there's some additional programs there too. And then finally, you see the budget here for this previous year. We're a little short, but that's because we had the RFP was for 2 programs, but we only had 1 eligible candidate for that RFP, which was the Family Outreach Center. So we're a little short there, but hopefully through the carry forward process, we can allocate that money in next year. And that's it. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but actually let me have Mel and Ms. Taylor come up and just tell real short about your programs. We'll start with Ms. Taylor. These were both winners at the last pitch night.
Hello, everyone. I'm representing Tailor-Made Reentry nonprofit. Our overall mission is bridging the gaps between community, law enforcement, and justice-impacted citizens. And we won the Safe Pitch last year for our youth empowerment and family reunification program. I specialize in justice-impacted. I specialize my services are for justice impacted individuals specifically. So I wanted to be sure that the grant specifically catered to those who were either residing at Job Corps, Juvenile Detention Center, or in Kent County. One fun fact about why I mentioned Kent County, many of us don't know that many of our offenders that are residing in Kent County Jail right now are considered youth. Although they have felony charges that are adult charges, due to Governor Whitmore's recent changes at making our criminal justice system more just, those individuals are now considered youth. So our youth age is now considered 24. So I was able to specifically cater to all of those populations of people, and not only the individuals residing, but also their families as well. And I knew that an important part of gun violence prevention or reduction was involved with those family members, because we know that our behavior and the things that we taught starts at home. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Ms. Taylor. Coach Bell?
Hello, everyone. How y'all doing? I'm Coach Mel from Hatchet Player Development, and so our mission is to uplift and empower the youth by providing resources. So what Safe Task Force allowed us to do is create a peace league, a basketball peace league. You know, activities kind of draw the kids' attention. So I use basketball. So I was able to have like 8 teams with like 8 youth. So around 56 plus youth was there. So and it will allow me to create a partnership with LifeQuest, with Jerry Bishop as well. Now we're doing like a adult league, like even more to extend it a little further. Outside of that, out of that chunk of kids that I was reaching, it allowed me to start like a mentor program where it's called King, where knowing I need God. So out of that chunk, I was able to get probably like 12 to 15 kids to be able to just provide resources. Like I said, we just practice, we talk to each other, we meet up at a housing and just watch sports, or just provide information from like what their goals are. Is it what job you thinking, what you want to do in life, and some of these young men know the young man that's straddling that line where gun violence and things like that. So I'm able to get other information to try to see if I could talk to them, So it is doing us well at this point, and I just appreciate what Safe Task Force has done for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. There's nothing like an adult mentor for youth. So I'll take any questions and.
Thank you for the presentation and the update on that. The only thing I had, and I think Commissioner Sassy and I talked about this, I think it was last week, and it's how do other organizations, I mean, I know we always say that we do the outreach or whatever, but we were literally talking about an organization that was doing something, and she said, oh my gosh, they should apply. But how would they even know that they can apply for that? Because sometimes when you think about, the Safe Task Force, you're just thinking about violence, right? And violent acts, or how your organization addresses those things. But there's other things that are attributed to why people commit these things, and so how we can engage other organizations.
Yeah. No, thanks for bringing that up, because I think you were able to come to our convening in March and inviting really the new commissioners. And sorry, Commissioner Goy, we missed you on that last one. But I think one of the things we could do, and Asante will talk about the pitch night that now that 7 o'clock we'll confirm it, have the approval, we'll start promoting our next pitch night. I'm just going to say it, Asante, on Tuesday, October 30th?
October 29th.
October 29th, so Wednesday, October 29th. And so I'll just mention that to save time. Tuesday, okay, we love Tuesdays around here. So Tuesday, October 29th, that'll be our pitch night. And everybody on our Public Safety Committee is invited. All commissioners are invited. We do a press release, but I think one of the things, to answer your question, Commissioner, is we could highlight some of the past winners to highlight the variety of the work that has been funded. So, I mean, you saw it here with just 2 of them, but we've had some individuals on the domestic violence work. We've done some things that invested in training, training individuals, working with the police department for funding individuals get their driver's license for employment opportunities. So it has been very multifaceted. What are the root causes of violence overall? So.
Thank you. Because I know sometimes people, they'll compartmentalize things and they don't understand all the things that go on around that and how they can actually
and thank you to
participate in this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you to GRPS University. It'll be held at Gerald R. Ford Academy.
No, ma'am.
No?
You said it, GRPS.
Oh, GRPS University. I'm sorry. Second ward. So we're having in the second ward.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank our amazing programs that are preventative programs. I mean, we have an amazing, police department, fire department, first responders. But I'm also grateful that this city and this community understands the importance of finding ways to prevent violence to occur. And so I love, thanks to all the organizations that are part of the Safe Alliances for Everyone program, the Cure Violence program with the Urban League. I hope that we can invest more in this so that we can really, I think it was Frederick Douglass that said, building a strong child is easier than to repair a broken adult. And I'm hoping we can really continue to invest in supporting these various organizations that are looking at this as really as a healthcare issue, prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo the same sentiments of Commissioner Gouy. My hope in all sincerity is that we would even look at earlier intervention, especially when we look at the World Health Organization 12 to 24 ages for adolescents. And I know that most of your emphasis looks at 15 to 24. I think that was that capacity.
We did drop it to 12 actually almost maybe about 3 years ago because of just that, Pastor. And talking with the police department too and talking, Chris Becker, our prosecutor, is part of this work too. So we'll be sure to highlight that in that application process because you're right. It's 10-year-old, 11-year-olds too.
Yeah, especially with the influx of the incidents that we've had in our city.
Thank you for highlighting that.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? We're good? All right. Thank you very much for that update. We appreciate it and all of your hard work in the community. And we look forward to talking with you again and seeing you on Pitch Night on October 29th.
Yes.
GRPS.
We're going to take a picture with our winners if anybody wants to be part of the picture. So more marketing. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.